the revolutionary ankle lock system, an integrated brace built into the boots, delivering unrivaled support, protecting ligaments from twists, tears, and trauma.
This is Matt for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store and Our Kings Competitions. We're here with Dan Rafael. Dan, first off, hope you've had a good Christmas and we're coming to the end of a very busy year. It's been a good year and we're looking forward to an even busier one looking at the start of January as well.
Yeah, they got some already, as you look at that calendar, there's already some several fights that are lined up and hopefully it'll be a better year than 2025. I didn't really think 2025 was anything spectacular in terms of overall boxing.
No, you didn't think it was nothing?
I mean, it was fine. There were some major fights. Of course, there were some great fights and some tremendous performances and things along those lines. But I think as a totality, I don't think it was the sport's best year. But we can talk about happier things.
Absolutely. And well, the way January is shaping up, it could be an unbelievable start to the year. Especially, I think there's some real gems there, and we'll come on to that in a minute. Look, we haven't touched on sort of the past few weeks. I don't know if you have with other outlets. I know you have on your newsletter, but Anthony Joshua, Jake Paul, just quickly, let's just run that back. The stoppage, I suppose, what everyone was predicting happened. Maybe a bit later than some people were predicting, but look, Jake did his thing and stayed in there, I suppose, as long as he could. And the ending was a brutal one.
Oh, no doubt about it. But the fact that the ending was the ending, the way that it occurred, if it was anything other than that, I think that would be the biggest upset of the year. I mean, like you said, the ending was more or less, I'm not saying it's like a fixed fight, it's preordained, whatever. But when you look at the matchmaking, what did you expect from a massively experienced Olympic gold medalist, two-time unified heavyweight champion who's fought several of the top fighters? Granted, he lost some fights, but he's fought a ton of top guys. He's beaten a lot of top guys. And whatever you think where Anthony Joshua is in his career at the moment, he's still a formidable heavyweight.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you have Jake Paul, who is a novice professional still, who is not a heavyweight, who's fought virtually his entire career, south of 200 pounds, with a couple of exceptions. One of them being 220s, fighting the remnants of Mike Tyson, literally 19 years after his retirement. And if you go back to his retirement, Tyson, even for the last 5 or 6 years when he was an active fighter, was pretty much shot to bits. So what did anybody expect? Anybody that went into watching Anthony Joshua, Jake Paul, that expected anything other than Anthony Joshua to flatten him is just on a Looney Tune. I mean, yeah, like you said, did it go 6 rounds and last, a few longer? I'll give credit to Jake for hanging in there. Part of it was because he employed an extremely unfriendly for fans style, but it was the only way he could do it if he wanted to survive that many rounds, which is to basically get on his bicycle and ride around the ring for a bunch of rounds and then get off his bicycle and run, like a criminal at night after the cops show up. So it is what it is. I mean, it'll be the fact that it's still resonated shows you the interest that there was in the fight, and certainly that knockout was a viral clip. And I'll quote the great philosopher Eddie Hearn. We're going to take care of Jake Paul and on to the real boxing in 2026.
Yeah, the great philosopher.
Eddie will like that.
Yeah, he will. I might take that out because he'll like it too much. Look, in terms of AJ now, I think he's always in a no-win situation. I think unless he flattened him within 10 seconds, someone would have something to say, whether it be before the fight and why is he doing this. Look, we know why he's doing it, and it helps him, I suppose, in the US market as well in terms of coming over here and making a big splash. But do you understand where some people maybe have been a bit critical with how long it's taken, or is it the fact that you fight a guy who's that, like you mentioned there, he's a novice boxer and he's moving around the ring? Was it down to Anthony to cut him off sooner, or do you see why it went that long?
I mean, look, Anthony certainly could have done a better job cutting the ring off, and Anthony Joshua was the first one to say so himself after the ring. I mean, I've always viewed Joshua as pretty honest when it comes to assessing his own performances. Mm-hmm. I mean, 2 things can be true at the same time. He scored a great knockout, and it took longer than it should have. And there were certain things that were because of what Jake did that made it last longer, and there were certain things that Joshua did that made it last longer. But in terms of his decision to take the fight, I mean, I don't know anybody in the world that if they're doing something as like their profession and you're offered crazy money to do something super easy, or less money to do something that's probably more difficult, what are you going to do? If somebody said to me, "Hey Dan, I'm going to give you, $1 million to write 500 words about Muhammad Ali," or I'm going to give you $100,000, you got to write like this opus on some random subject. Obviously, I'm taking the money to do the easier job. Who wouldn't? As long as it's legal and you're not hurting anybody. What the heck? I mean, I can't blame Anthony Joshua one moment for taking that fight. I'd have done the exact same thing.
I spoke to Eddie Hearn fight week, and we went in depth about Anthony Joshua and his options, because although the Tyson Fury fight is something that we feel like everything's moving towards, finally, there is still that sort of carrot of he does want to become a world champion again, and that Eddie was keen to sort of hit home on that. Now I was saying, well, Fury needs to come back. He'll probably have an interim fight. Fabio Wardley is going to be so far without a fight going into next year. I know they don't want to mess up maybe the money going into that mega fight, quote unquote mega fight. But if you're Anthony Joshua and you want to become world champion and you look at what's available and you go, right, the fight definitely sells. Wardley's always in a good fight. Always in a good fight. No matter what's happening in the fight, it's exciting. Anthony Joshua has been there before. He knows what it takes. That could be a fight that they could look at. And, Frank Warren's openly said, look, if they want to knock on that door, we'll happily accept that tomorrow. Do you look at that fight and maybe go, or is that too big a risk in the businessman's eyes to say we can't mess up the Fury money? It's too big of a banana skin.
Well, I mean, definitely it is a risky fight. I mean, I'll put it like this. It's one thing to say I want to do a calendar year where I'm fighting Fabio Wardley for his title, and then I'm going to fight Fury. There's nothing wrong with that. But anybody that would consider Fabio Wardley at this stage should be a tuna fight is just not being honest about it. It's a real fight. And I think there are some people out there that would say it poses just as much danger as risk or a gamble or however you want to describe it as it would be when he fights Tyson Fury. So Joshua has to make some decisions about that. I don't think they're going to take that risky of a fight going into the prospect of a Fury fight. I mean, it's fun for us to sit here and bullshit about it, but I just don't think that's legitimate. I don't think that's real. I mean, I understand why Frank Warren and Fabio Wardley and their group would want that. They would welcome that fight because it's a winnable fight, and it's a bonanza in terms of compared to whatever money Fabio Wardley has made in his career so far. But if you're Joshua, I just don't see that. Now, you could get to a certain point in your career where if Joshua doesn't really care about the Fury fight, and he's already made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe you leave a little money on the table or a lot of money on the table to go get the opportunity. You can buy a lot of things in life, but you can't buy the heavyweight title or a heavyweight title without going in there and usually beating, a good quality opponent. So, but again, I don't think that's happening. I think they're going to find Anthony Joshua a regular type of opponent for whenever the fight is, whether it's February, as they've been discussing, maybe later. And then if he wins and Fury comes back and wins, presumably, we'll see in like September at Wembley Stadium.
Is that something that you're looking forward to the prospect of seeing, even though now we've spoke about this fight maybe for the last 4 or 5 years? I think it's been on at one stage, and then they had the whole Wilder arbitration and all the kind of carry on. Maybe in a lot of people's eyes, maybe past its sell-by date in terms of what it could have been, but still globally and commercially, it's massive, isn't it?
I understand it's not what it should have been, but I still want to see the fight. I still think that the two guys are they're look, neither one of them is where they were at their best, and they're neither one are at their peak. They're not in their prime. Joshua got badly knocked out in the Dubois fight. He came back and got the knockout against Jake Paul, but that's not exactly a top level comeback type fight. I don't fault him for doing the fight. And Fury, even though it was against the very best fighter, perhaps certainly in the heavyweight division, maybe in all of boxing in terms of Alexander Usyk, two losses in a row. But I still think that Joshua and Fury can compete against the best. And as I've said, Matt, I mean, who knows how many times I've said this. I'd be a multi-zillionaire if I had a buck for every time I've said it. That fight needs to happen. The fans deserve that fight. Boxing deserves that fight. The history of the heavyweight division deserves that fight. And Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury deserve that fight to show once and for all who's the best fighter of their times in a great boxing country like England. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
Can I ask you, when Eddie talks about this fight, and it's always, especially you know yourself, dealing with us, like how big this fight is and how boxing sits in the United Kingdom. It's always seen and spoken as this will be the biggest fight in world boxing. Is there another fight right now that could get made in world boxing apart from these two, which would be bigger in your eyes?
Well, as big as Fury and Joshua is, it's a huge fight for boxing fans. It's obviously, we'll probably have, all of the UK paying attention to it, and things will come to a halt when that fight starts. I don't think it resonates on that level in most other places in the world. Will there be interest in the United States? Yeah, sure, but would it be covered mainstream? I think maybe like on the day of the fight or the day before the fight, maybe some of the big newspapers might have a story about it, or you might see, a little clip here or there and some mainstream things, but it's not that big of a deal in America, I don't think. For guys like me, of course, I've never really cared if you're what country you're from. If there's a good fight to see, there's a good fight to see. So yeah. Is it the biggest fight in all of boxing? I mean, maybe, but it also, if that's the case, it's sort of indictment on the lack of big fights in boxing. I mean, there are some significant fights. I mean, but is there, if you take a look at who are the best stars, Crawford just retired, so there's not a mega fight for him. Canelo's coming off the loss. He's fought pretty much everybody. Even at this point, if he were to say, I want to fight like a Benavidez or somebody like that, I don't think it would be as big just because of the way he looked against Crawford. Guys like Benavidez, if he fought like a better Biev or a Bivol, those are big fights, but that's not the type of attention worldwide, or certainly not in the United States of what it would be the equivalent of a Fury and a Joshua in the UK. So maybe it is, but again, to me, it's kind of by default, not because it is. It's because there's nothing else in its place. I often wonder when the big fight happens, whatever era you're talking about, Lewis Tyson, you know what I mean? De La Hoya Trinidad. You can go all through the last, however many years you want to talk about. I always think, okay, when the fight's over and it comes Monday morning or Sunday morning, what's the next big fight, the biggest fight in boxing? I'm not sure what it is. Like Tank Davis is on sabbatical. I mean, so there's not one there for him. I'm thinking of like who are the so-called big stars in the sport, and there just isn't. I mean, tell me, am I missing something?
No. So that's why I'm asking, because of how we build it up, and I know from multiple trips to America how boxing is seen over there, and it does blow my mind sometimes when you can have a fight happen in the city and the taxi driver will be taking you to the fight and him not know that it's happening. It's
That's true. I've been there. I've been there and all around the country and all kinds of, not just all over the place where that's the case.
So I look at the mega fights and the ones I've been to, you Spence Crawfords, and like how big a fight that felt, and even as far as Tank and Ryan Garcia, that fight felt massive, like it really did. And
that was a big one.
That for me was like I remember sat there in the media. Obviously Coleman was looking at each other going, this feels big. So I look and go, if Gervonta Davis gets back into office sabbatical, let's just call it that, and gets himself, I don't know whether it's back on in the public eye, gets a nice win under his belt, can then your Shakurs, your Tears, all these other pieces of the puzzle who maybe in and around, could there be a scenario where that happens? And I don't know, because of all the moving up in weights, and does Tank
I don't think so. I think the combination of boxing not being at that level in this country anymore, and the fact that the fighters who are super talented fighters and tremendous athletes and have great stories, and certainly lots of them have been in good fights. You and I know that, and the diehards know that, but they don't reach the mainstream to a certain degree. There's very little coverage. Certainly now with ESPN being out of the boxing business, it takes a hit. So it's hard to get the casual sports fan, if you will, to pay attention to those types of guys. So I know we're going to talk a little about like Shakur, Stevenson, and Teofimo Lopez. I mean, within boxing, that's a huge fight. It's a highly anticipated fight. Two great young fighters. That won't be a blip on the radar in the United States overall. I mean, even with the fight taking place in New York City, I would imagine that there'll be some local coverage, but it's not going to be the blowout of some other big mega fights that have taken place in New York City.
I look at, in terms of names, obviously Manny Pacquiao, it's bad that we're still having to go back to these fighters who, have long been retired and come back. But you look at like a Pacquiao and a Ryan Garcia and you go, well, they both have big appeal. Like if they ever got in the ring, maybe that would be big. But we don't know what's going on from one day to the next with Ryan, and is this fight happening? Is it not? And
well, Ryan is fighting Mario Barrios. I mean, that to me, as far as I'm told from both sides, that's a done deal. It's just not been announced because they're waiting to get through the holidays. They don't want to waste their powder on announcing a fight during Christmas week or at New Year's when most people aren't paying attention to their sports news or to any news. Frankly, they're chilling on the holidays. So I would think that come next week, at some point, we'll see an announcement of that event.
We mentioned just then in the talking Terence Crawford's retirement, and we haven't spoke on that, so let's just touch on it. Was there any surprise to you? Do you look around and go, he's made his money maybe now, or is this one of them where he goes and retires and then jumps back? We see it all the time.
There's always the possibility that a boxer who retires comes back and fights. I mean, that's happened more times than not, frankly. As far as Crawford's retirement, when he announced it, and this is my same philosophy when everybody, as I've joked around in the wake of Terence Crawford's retirement, when fighters announce their retirement, I give them the benefit of the doubt and I believe them, with the lone exception of Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
So when Crawford announced his retirement, I did believe it. He made massive money over the last few years. And he lives in Omaha, Nebraska, not exactly a high cost of living. He's never struck me as a guy that runs around with 12 cars and a giant posse of people running around, or, goes out to the clubs and blows money for no reason. I mean, when it comes to that, I think he's done a pretty good job by my understanding. Combine that with the fact, this is what really struck me. When he made the announcement, this was not Tyson Fury picking up his phone one morning and blasting out a 30-second video on Instagram saying, "Hey guys, I'm retired." This was Terence Crawford's people and his team spending some time. If you watch that 5+ minute video, that didn't happen in 3 seconds. There was high production values. It was very slickly done. He narrated it. They had all kinds of footage of not only past fights in his career and of him, but of his family members, of important people on his team. Like that, there was thought put into that. He didn't just wake up one morning and say, "I'm retiring." There was definitely thought put into that. Now you take the video and you combine that with the fact that, and this is what I always look for, I've seen lots of guys say they're going to retire and they don't necessarily do so, and they don't give up the belts. He's given up the belts one by one. I think technically speaking, he's still holding the WBA, but I asked the WBA about that, and I was told, like, they said they're going to vacate it. We're just waiting for the actual correspondence, but we consider it to be vacant. He already vacated the WBO. He already officially vacated the IBF. The WBC, of course, had stripped him a few weeks ago at their convention. So when boxers not only make a slick video and they vacate the titles, believe them. I mean, again, could he change his mind? Of course, but he to me, he's a retired fighter. Next time I put out a divisional rankings, or I'll put out a pound for pound list, I will not include Terence Crawford, as he is retired. And, good for him. He gets out as a very wealthy man with massive accomplishment. And it'll be my pleasure 3 years from now to get my ballot for the International Boxing Hall of Fame and take about as long as it takes me to get the cap off my pen and put it to the paper to vote for him.
Absolutely. You mentioned there about him being taken off, obviously, these lists now because he's gone into retirement. A few people might move around them places now. We've seen Naoya and Inoue at the weekend, picking up a victory. What did you make of the Inoue victory? And obviously setting up. Obviously, you mentioned that in your newsletter, the big clash with Nakatani. What did you make of the performances?
I thought Nakatani was a bit disappointing, but he showed the grit to get through a tough fight against an unheralded opponent in Sebastian Hernandez. I did think he won that fight 7 rounds to 5. It was a very tough fight. He had a big, bad, swollen eye at the end of that fight. His right eye was a mess. But for Nakatani, he did enough work in that first half of the fight where he basically dominated the first. I thought he might stop the guy. He was whipping him on him so easily through those first 4 or 5 rounds. But Hernandez just kept on trucking, and like a true warrior, he just would not say no. And he as Nakatani began to maybe get a little tired because he was moving a lot, he was expending a lot of energy, throwing a lot of punches. As he started to slow down a little bit, Hernandez was starting to land more shots. They were doing some damage. Remember, Inoue is at 122. That's why Nakatani went to that weight class. So he's moving up yet another division. He'd already won titles in 3 other divisions. So now he's fighting even a bigger guy. And but look, he showed the grit and the heart. He got the job done. It was a close fight. The thing that most people are pissed off about is the fact that one judge had it at 10 rounds to 2 in favor of Nakatani, which that's just not realistic. I understand there's close rounds in fights and fights can be close, but that was not the kind of fight, to me anyway, where it was a complicated fight to score. You could have that fight, 7 to 5, maybe either way.
But not that wide though.
I mean, on the zone, their unofficial card had it a draw. I mean, okay, fine. 10-2 is like you clearly missed some rounds. I mean, it was not good in that manner. So, but their end result is what counts. So he got the job done. Maybe it took a little luster off of what people think of him going into the Inoue fight. But if you look at the Inoue main event, his victory against Picasso, Inoue, he was a master in there. I mean, if you want to get cliche, he's fighting Picasso. We painted the masterpiece against Picasso. I mean,
yeah.
The thing to me about Inoue, as he has gotten a little bit older, and I'm not saying he's slowed down. He's arguably, at worst, he's number 2 in the world in pound for pound. He still has, to me anyway, if you want to be super critical at the highest level, where I think about, like, if you're running the 100 meters in the Olympics, what separates the athlete that wins the gold medal and the person that finishes in last place is like tenths of a second, milliseconds. Like that's what we're talking about in terms of Inoue. So he's still great, but he's definitely lost a little bit off the fastball, in my opinion. As he's risen in weight, he's now in his early 30s. He has more world championship appearances than some guys have fights in their career. That was his 27th consecutive world title fight, which is, amazing.
Yeah.
I think that's a record actually in boxing. I think that's more than Joe Louis and Floyd Mayweather and a couple other guys.
It's incredible.
But anyway, but the point is about what he did was he used to be just a pure puncher in many respects. He's become a little bit more of a boxer who relies more on that crazy accuracy and the movement and the jab. He's become more of a well-rounded boxer since his wilder earlier days. In some ways, kind of like a Pacquiao, not exactly, but Pacquiao became a little more refined as he learned better, as he became a little bit older. Inoue is still doing a tremendous job, but he's got more things he can do, even if the power isn't what it maybe was for a long time. He looked awesome. I thought that was other than not getting a knockout. I don't know what else Inoue could have done. Now, he said in his interview after the fight that he was disappointed with his performance. I mean, if you win 12 rounds to 0, and I think the other card was 11 rounds to 1, and maybe one judge had it 10 rounds to 2. I don't know how you can be too upset about that. But the bottom line is the big fight's going to happen in May at the Tokyo Dome. That's what they're looking at. And it's going to be the biggest fight in Japanese history. It's a mega fight for world boxing. It's a fight that I'm definitely looking forward to. And even when that's over with, there's still other business because they talked about Bam Rodriguez. That's another huge fight.
I was just about to touch on that because that's always been the talk whenever I've spoke to Eddie about that potential mega fight. And you look at Bam, and every time I've watched him live or on the TV, you look and go, this guy he looks to be getting better, and it's frightening how sort of comfortable he is in these matchups that he's having right now. Is that the sort of end goal for the back end of this year that we're going to be seeing, do you think, to see Bam and Inoue, depending on obviously if he comes through Nakatani, because that's not a given?
Right. I mean, if in fact, well, that's the beauty of that, by the way. Whoever wins Inoue Nakatani, Bam is the perfect guy. I mean, I always wanted to see Bam against Nakatani before I wanted to necessarily see him with Inoue. But I understand the Japanese aspect of it, the financial aspect of it. Okay, fine. So as you said, if they do in fact do their fight in May, and let's say Inoue is the winner, he'll definitely be the favorite in that fight. Bam is going to fight before then. We'll see if he can line up the undisputed fight. Obviously, things got a little bit messed up over the weekend in Saudi Arabia because of the fact that the Wilibaldo Garcia Taraji fight, which was for the other belt that Bam does not have, that fight got canceled because of Wilibaldo's illness that happened right after the weigh-in, I guess, or after the ceremonial weigh-in. So there's going to be a mandatory situation there. And Robert Garcia, who was the manager of Bam, has said, look, we're not going to just wait around at 115 to just do another fight while we wait for that mandatory situation to play out. So if Andrew Maloney is the mandatory, if he steps aside or we can work something out, we want to fight the champion next, which would be Garcia, and go for undisputed, and then move up and wait. If not, they'll just move up right away. My point is, at some point in 2026, you got to figure Bam Rodriguez is going to have a fight at 122 pounds. So whether it's to become now, the scenario could be where maybe they can get the undisputed fight with Wilibaldo Garcia whenever he comes back and wherever Bam fights again, and that could happen. And if Bam wins, now he's the undisputed champion at 115 pounds. And then at the end of the year, maybe, I don't know if he would do the jump 2 weight classes from 15 to 22 to go for Inoue, but I know this, And Bam Rodriguez has said this to my face over a year ago. I sat with him in a hotel in Los Angeles in August of 2024. We were there for the Terence Crawford Madrimov fight. And I was having a conversation. It wasn't even like an interview. We were just having a conversation with Bam. And we were talking about, like, what he was thinking about for his career. And he said his dream fight was to fight Inoue. This is before he'd even unified titles at 115. So this is something that's been in his mind for quite a while. So that is a huge fight. That would be a great fight. Bam even said, I'd love to go fight in Japan. He has a relationship with Mr. Honda, who has been involved with his career from the beginning, pretty much. So there you go. That's a massive fight, and we might get it.
Mega fight. Look, last two, just very quickly. Have you heard anything more on Virgil Ortiz and Boots? That's talk on that. Seemingly, we're waiting, kind of thing. Is that going to be done? Do you think?
I mean, as I have said, and I have put on social media and talked about, on my own podcast and things. The deal is done, except, and when I say done, there's a big thing that's not done. It is the basic. No, it's not even just paperwork. It is the difference of opinion about how much the Virgil Ortiz fight or Virgil Ortiz side should make, what their pay is going to be. So there's a brutal negotiation that's going on between Oscar De La Hoya, Eric Gomez from Golden Boy, and Rick Meridian, who is the manager of Virgil Ortiz. It has gotten heated at times. I think they understand each other now. I think they're trying to get it worked out. And one way or the other, I think we're going to know by the end of, like say the first week of January, because either it's going to get done or it's not going to get done. They're pretty much at a point where the Golden Boy team knows what the bare minimum is that Virgil their side will take. They've made their, the Virgil side has made their argument why to Golden Boy, and now it's up to them to crunch their own numbers and see if it's doable. Otherwise, it won't happen. I will say this, though. I do think, despite all the back and forth that they've had, either in public or in private, I'm hopeful that it will get done. I would never wager on that because I've seen big fights fall apart plenty of times. But compared to the way I felt a few days ago, let's say, I have reason to believe that they're closer to getting a deal done now than they were a few days ago. Put it like that.
Good stuff. And finally, the Teofimo undercard is now taking place. Now taking shape. Sorry, Keyshawn Davis is back. We see Bruce Carrington and Castro fighting for the WBC featherweight title. I believe, is that going to be the interim title? Has Fulton still kept that, even though he's fought?
Yeah, so the WBC, and Mauricio Suleiman explained this to me. Now, most of the time, if you're the WBC interim champion and the full champion, vacates or moves up in weight or whatever, that the interim champion is automatically elevated to the full title holder. Apparently, that's not always the case in the WBC, there's other precedent for that. But in this particular case, Carrington, it makes no sense. Let's just be honest about it. But if you want to just get to the factual information, Carrington is the interim champion. Castro has been the number one contender, and so they will fight for what is the vacant full title in the wake of Stephen Fulton vacating it, as opposed to Stephen Fulton having vacated, Carrington being elevated to the full champion, and now making a defense against Castro. And honestly, the interim championship was not necessary in the first place, so I kind of prefer this. At the very least, Castro and Carrington will fight, and the title's vacant legitimately because Fulton vacated. And when the fight happens, the guy that wins, the ring announcer is going to say, and the new WBC featherweight champion, and the way it should be, not the interim champion, and he's still the champion if he wins the fight. It's just it's all gobbledygook. So let them fight for the vacant title, and that'll be that. But yeah, it's a good undercard. Carrington will be in front of a home crowd. He's from New York, fighting Castro, who's a pretty solid fighter, who's scored a knockdown against Stephen Fulton, even though he lost a very close fight. They also put on Carlos Adames, the WBC's middleweight champion, to defend against Austin Williams.
Good fight.
You mentioned about the return of Keyshawn. That was when they announced it. That was put in the co-feature position against Jermaine Ortiz. Ortiz, look, his only losses were against the top guys. I mean, he gave a very tough, credible, competitive performance against Lomachenko. He also had a highly competitive, although horrible fight to watch against Teofimo Lopez.
Yeah, I remember.
I thought he beat Teofimo Lopez in that fight, to be quite honest with you. It was a shitty fight. It was one of the worst fights you'll ever see, but he got enough done, in my mind, to win 7 rounds of the fight, but it was a garbage fight. But nonetheless, Keyshawn has taken that fight. Originally, it was supposed to be Richardson Hitchens defending his IBF 140-pound title against Ortiz on this card. As Hitchens has put on his social media, and his team has said, look, we were in the position to do that fight. We signed for the fight. We agreed to the fight, but they wanted to go with the Keyshawn Davis fight. So we have some other plan that I guess they're still working with them, but they claim, I don't know what it is, some type of more interesting, bigger, better fight that will take place not too long after. So, look, Hitchens is set up for something good after the way he performed against Kambosos. And, we'll see Keyshawn back in the ring after his freaking meltdown over the summer.
Yeah.
Where he blew his lightweight title, wrecked Top Rank's event in his hometown, lost out on a 7-figure payday, and then got into attacked the opponent of his brother in the dressing room, got into a melee and got kicked out of the arena. It's been a bad year for Keyshawn Davis, but he's coming back. A new team in terms of changing trainers. I'm not sure who the new trainer is, but he's parted ways with Brian McIntyre. He is signed with the manager, James Prince. That's probably the reason he got this position, because James Prince is also the manager of Shakur Stevenson, who of course is in the main event, and that things work in boxing. That's not a shock there. But yeah, it's a good card. If you care, Gerald Miller's on the card. The heavyweight.
I do, yeah.
So there you go.
Happy days. Well, look, we've covered a fair amount there, Dan. And look, for all the breaking news, as always, like we like to say from this end, the links will be in our description on YouTube. We'll be on the links on Twitter as well for Dan's newsletter. Make sure you keep on tabs with that as well as following Boxing Social. And we will catch up in the new year. It's a busy January, and there'll be plenty to talk about once we get to like week 3 and just before the the big one at the end of it. So yeah, appreciate your time, Dan, and have all the best for the new year.
All right, man. I appreciate that too, and a happy new year to you and all of the Boxing Social watchers.
The revolutionary ankle lock system, an integrated brace built into the boots, delivering unrivaled support, protecting ligaments from twists, tears, and trauma.